What's up, my dude? Ski TW Spins. I appreciate you becoming a member of the channel. Okay, so I wanted to go in here and talk about this 2020 Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Series, okay? And first of all, before I even get into it, let me just say, I'm not trying to say all this crap going on is AMA's fault or Lucas Oil Pro Motocross's fault or the FIM's fault. That's not what I'm trying to get at, all right? So don't even get that idea in your head. I completely understand they're totally out of control of the, out of, you know, being in control of what happens with this, all this crap that's going on. They're not the ones that are, you know, causing it. It ain't their fault all this stuff's going on, right? So I fully understand that. But what I do want to say is they do still have the power to say, okay, if this 2020 Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Series, for whatever reason, is going to be changed to such an extent differently from what it normally would be, then we need to consider not even running it. All right? So some of you guys are going to freak out when I say that. You're going to be like, oh my God, Spencer, shut the hell up. They definitely needed to run it. What are you talking about, dude? They should always run it. Doesn't even matter if they're only running 3 races. They still should have ran the series. I mean, there's going to be some of you dudes out there that think that way, okay? Let me explain my point, right? So, and by the way, this 2020 Supercross Series was a completely different situation because they were already halfway through it when all this crap in 2020 came around, right? They were already halfway through the Supercross Series, so they had to finish that. That was like a must. You had to do it. You had to get it done. And they still ran 16 or 17 rounds of Supercross. They still ran the normal amount of rounds. It was just half of the rounds were in one stadium, right? But they still ran basically the same amount of rounds they would on a normal Supercross series. So I had no problem with that at all. Tomac won. There's really no asterisk you can put beside his name on that title because they still ran 16 rounds. Half of the rounds were completely normal. I mean, that can go down in history as a normal Supercross championship right there, right? But when we get to this motocross series, okay, 2-3 months before they were even running the motocross series, it was supposed to be, I don't even think they were supposed to go to Loretta's at all at the beginning, right? And then like few weeks later, we figure out they're going to Loretta's, and then a few weeks after that, we figure out now they're doing 2 rounds at Loretta's, doing 2 rounds at Redbud. This is just like progressively changed to being less and less like a normal Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Series, okay? It's just as they've went, you know, getting closer and closer to starting the series, it's just gotten less and less and less like what a normal Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Series would be, right? And I don't necessarily have such a big problem with doing 2 rounds at Loretta's and 2 rounds at Redbud. That's not really the, you know, the big deal to this whole situation. My problem is they're doing 9 rounds instead of 12 rounds, okay? They're doing 18 motos instead of 24 motos. That's my problem right there. They have literally cut a 4th off of the championship. A 4th. All right? 3, 6, 9, 12. Okay? They go from 12 to 9. They are cutting a complete 4th, a quarter of the championship off. Totally off of there. So, this is my problem, right? Anytime you cut down, listen, if they had only cut 1 race off, like let's say, crap, they can only do 11 races instead of 12, you wouldn't have heard me say a word about it, right? But once you start getting to that point where you're doing 2, 3, 4 less races, and it's not just each one of these is just 1 race, each one of these is 2 potential moto scoring races, right? So you're losing, you know, going from 12 to 9, you're losing 2, 4, 6 motos. They're doing 6 motos less than they normally would. All right? So, my point with saying all that is if you're the guy that goes and wins that one weird, crazy motocross, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Championship that only has 9 rounds, but then all these other people around you had to go 12 rounds to win the championship, that certainly can have an asterisk beside it, right? Certainly. I mean, and that's why, like, I almost wish they would have just ran 3 rounds at Loretta's and 3 rounds at Red Bull, or do whatever they could to still run 12 rounds instead of running 9. Like, I think they are making a big mistake by only doing 9 rounds. And again, I'm not blaming them. They're doing all they can, right? Don't let it to sound like I'm trying to say that. But what I'm getting at is you've got to be able to understand when you start changing what the normal parameters are and requirements are to win a certain championship. Once it starts changing and getting so far away from that, you've got to understand when you should still run a series and when you shouldn't still run a series, right? And to me personally, if you're going to cut a literal 4th off of the amount of races in a series, you shouldn't even still run it. That's my opinion. Let's just think back in the history books of all the different Supercross championships and Motocross championships that have been decided in the last quarter of the races. I would guesstimate it's probably 50% or more of the championships get decided in that last, quarter of the races of the championship. I guarantee you it is. So, what my point being is, you would have had all different kinds of champions throughout the past if we were only running 9 rounds in motocross instead of 12. You'd add all different kind of championship. That's the whole point. Like, that's what makes a championship, okay? That's what makes it so prestigious, is because you have to consistently perform week in and week out for a very specific amount of time. I guess what I'm getting at is when you only have 9 outdoor rounds, it almost feels like if you have any kind of bad race or bike malfunction or anything, it's like you don't even have enough races to even try to catch back up. You see what I'm saying? It's like it starts to feel kind of like a 250 Supercross championship at that point when you only have 9 motocross rounds. It's like there's not even enough rounds there where if something crazy did happen to give you at least some kind of amount of time to be able to catch back up. It's like that's not even there right now. So that's one of the biggest problems that I have with it, right? Whoever's going to win this 2020, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Championship, it's going to be very interesting to see in that very last 9th round how close second place is to first place. And if they went ahead and went on and did the 12 rounds like they should do, like they normally would do in a championship, oh man. I understand, right? You got to be on the ball all the time, getting as best results as you can, like it's your last race. I get that, okay? But at the same time, you don't go out there and settle who's the best by going out there and everybody doing one lap on a circle track and boom, there's the best. He's the champion. You see what I'm saying? It makes a difference in how many races, also how many different places and venues you go to does also make a difference, but not as much of a difference as the overall amount of rounds that you run, right? That's what's really frustrating. I mean, if you've ever watched 250 Supercross racing where each individual, East and West Coast, they're only running basically half of the Supercross races that the 450 guys are running, and you've seen it time and time again where somebody will have a bike malfunction and then you just automatically think, well, there's no way in hell they're going to be able to catch back up in points now, or they have one little mishap, one little anything, and boom, there's just not even an opportunity for them to catch back up. I hate that. I hate when that sort of situation happens, right? So that's my problem with it. It's kind of similar to the whole, like, when they started adding in the Triple Crowns races into the normal Supercross races. I absolutely hate that. I cannot believe they ever did that, because you can go in there and technically win a Triple Crown overall race, right? And that's going to go down in the history books like you won a main event, when in reality, that is not even close to winning a 20-lap Supercross main event or a 20-minute, Supercross main event. That is nowhere even near the same kind of thing, because you could get second and thirds and fourths in all 3 races of a Triple Crown and win the overall. You cannot sit here and tell me that is the same difference as going and winning a race as long as a 20-minute, main event. There ain't no way in hell it's the same difference, right? So that's my problem. I hate when they change the parameters around how you win, right? Like, it's okay if you go from laps to minutes, as long as it's roundabout ballpark the same amount of, time in a race. You know what I mean? But once you start changing how you achieve that certain prestigious, AMA Supercross 450 win or Lucas Oil Pro Motocross 450 championship or whatever, once you start really changing the parameters of how you win that's when I start having a problem with it. And that's really what this 2020 Lucas Oil Pro Motocross series feels like to me. Not to mention the fact that they're literally running half of the series on 2 different tracks, half of the series, okay? So that in alone is already making it a little weird and different, which is kind of like how the Supercross series was. But like I go back and say, at least with the Supercross series, they still ran the same amount of races that they normally would have. So if somebody like a Roxon had a wreck at the, round 12 of Supercross or whatever, he still would have a little bit of time to catch back up, and it wouldn't have been some, shortened, they only run 13 Supercross races because they cut off the last quarter of the races. It's not like that, but that is how it is in outdoors. They straight up went from 12 rounds to 9 rounds, went from 24 motos to 18 motos. They just chopped off a fourth of the series. They chopped off a fourth of the amount of races that they're running. So, and it's not like, I guess what I'm getting at is it's going to make whoever wins this 450 Lucas Oil Pro Motocross title and even the 250 title, it's going to put a certain asterisk beside it. And that's what I never want to have happen. No matter what kind of craziness we have going on in real life, like I'm going back to my original point, if your series changes to such an extent to where it really has an asterisk beside it, like you're doing, you're cutting off a fourth of the amount of races that you normally would run or whatever, or you're doing Triple Crown races or whatever, you know what I mean? It just gets really, you get to that point where you've changed the parameters of what it takes to win and then now it's like, dog, I mean, you got to understand how many main events Michael Lessie would have quote unquote won if it was a Triple Crown format, or how many championships, I can just think of a lot of people in my head, Millsaps, all these dudes that held it all the way up until that last fourth of a championship or that last fourth of a Supercross 20-lap main event, and they just didn't quite get it because Villapoto swooped in and won the main event, or Dungy swoops in and won the main event at the end of it, or Villapoto swoops in at the last fourth of the championship series and wins the championship, right? That's the problem whenever you start changing those parameters. Now you're allowing luck, right? You're allowing luck situations to make certain people win certain things that wouldn't normally do it when you shorten a championship series. Right? The longer you make a series, the more you're making it less about luck and more about how you consistently was there week in and week out for 12 rounds, 24 motos. You put the work in. You were there from start to finish. You had your points. There was enough rounds to where even if someone had a bad mistake, they still had time to catch back up to you, and they couldn't. You still won, right? Whereas when you only have 9 rounds in a motocross series, man, you really can... There is a lot more luck, if you will, involved in that kind of a championship series than a full-blown 12-round, outdoor series. So either way, that's my opinion on it. I don't know, man. And it's just kind of weird them riding on Loretta Lynn's an amateur track. That was kind of bizarre to me to begin with. And the fact that they didn't just do 1 round on it, they did 2 rounds on it. So their first time ever the pro motocross goes to a, Loretta Lynn's amateur, the biggest amateur track, right? So they go to Loretta's not just once but twice, right? Then they have a double header on another track. So now we've got 4 races, 8 motos on just 2 different tracks, okay? Then, on top of all that, they're taking it from 12 rounds to 9 rounds. Dog, like, you just start to get to that point where you've changed it and you've had to warp it to such a degree that it's just not even the same kind of series anymore. You know what I mean? It's just not even remotely the same thing. So, I just feel sorry for any of those dudes that do end up winning it. I'm not saying they're not badasses on a dirt bike. Whoever does win this 250 and 450 Lucas Oil, 2020 motocross titles, I'm not saying they're not badasses on dirt bikes. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm just saying, would they have still won it if it still had the normal amount of 12 rounds instead of 9? Really? Really? Would they have or would they not have? Because there's a lot of guys can go out there and win a 10-lap race, heat race heroes. There's a lot of dudes could go out there and win a championship if you cut a 4th off of it. But when you really want to separate the men from the boys, the top dudes from the just pretty good dudes, that's when you get into that 20-minute main event format, that full-blown 24-moto, motocross championship, 16-round Supercross championship. That's when you start doing those things, because that's what separates the tippity top of the slope from the just pretty good dudes, right? And then that makes it even more prestigious, makes it mean even more when you do actually do it. That's what sucks about it. When they cut the rounds down from 12 to 9, now it's like you've lost the meaning to it. You know what I mean? It's not going to have the same meaning winning a 9-round series as it is winning a 12-round series. It's not going to have the same meaning winning a Triple Crown Supercross overall as it would winning a 20-lap Supercross main event or a 20-minute Supercross main event. It's not going to have the same meaning. You see what I'm saying? So it's not just me acting like, well, it's just bad for, like, me or whatever, like my viewing experience or whatever. I don't even think it's a good thing for the people that end up winning it, because they're always going to have that feeling of, well, shit, I won the motocross series in that weird time frame where it wasn't as many rounds as it normally was, or, oh, shit, I won a Triple Crown overall Supercross race, but I've never won a normal, 20-minute Supercross main event. You see what I'm saying? Like, I hate when they create those arbitrary, weird, like, different pathways to actually achieve the same goal. I hate that shit. I hate when AMA and Lucas Oil and all those dudes, FIM, I hate when they change shit like that. It's one thing when, way back in the day, they had less rounds or whatever. I'm talking like 20, 30 years ago, right? They had some less rounds and shit in some of the series, because that's just the way it was back then. I get things evolve over time, but man, like, holy crap. I just feel like you never want to go backwards. You know what I mean? If you require a certain thing, like you got to win 12 series races in an outdoor series to win the championship. You got to do good in 24 different motos to win that title. Once you get to that point, you never want to make it less than that. You can always make it more than that, but you never want to make it less than that, right? Once you get to the point where you have to win a 20-lap Supercross main event or a 20-minute Supercross main event, right? To win an actual Supercross main event, you never want to make it less than that. You never want to make it a 15-lap main event or a Triple Crown main event format or a 15-minute main event format. You never want to make it less, but you can make it more, right? You could always do a 25-lap main event or a 25-minute main event, but you never want to make it less. You see what I'm saying? Once you get to a certain standard, you never want to bring it back, drop it down. And I get, in the outdoors, the only reason they're even doing that is because because of all this shit going on. I get it, but that's where it goes back to you got to be able to make that decision of, is it even worth still running this shit with us having to run 2 races on an amateur track, the same amateur track, you know, only running 9 rounds. I mean, like, is it really even the same kind of championship anymore? Is it really? I'm starting to think it's really not, guys. So either way, it's just my opinion on it. I think they kind of made a little error there. I think it would have been much better had they ran 3 rounds at, you know, Red Bud, or then like picked up some of the other different tracks they were going to race on, you know, after Loretta Lynn's and Red Bud that they were only doing 1 round at, make some of those like 2 rounds apiece to where they still could have gotten themselves to that 12 round overall 24 Motocross series, right? I just wish they would have found a way to still been able to do that with it. That's really my only real problem with it. So either way, we'll see who wins it, but man, I don't know. It just sucks. It just sucks because it changes it, you know? It's okay to have a little bit of change. I'm not against a little bit of change, right? Like, for instance, the going from 20-lap Supercross main events to 20-minute Supercross main event. That's not a giant change. I guess it is 20 minutes plus a lap or whatever, right? That's not a giant change. Yeah, some tracks are going to be a little shorter, you know, overall main event length. Some are going to be a little longer, so I feel like it kind of evens itself out. They basically changed it without really changing a whole lot. That's what happened going from the 20 laps to 20 minutes plus a lap in Supercross. But when you start going from, you know, that to Triple Crown 3 moto formats, oh my God, like, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing? And that was just their choice. There wasn't even nothing forcing them to do that. That ain't even like the 2020 Lucas Oil Pro Motocross Series, right? So either way, I don't know. It's just disappointing to see it, you know. I just didn't want it to be this weird and be this different. Like, I think they would have been better off knowing all the crap they were going to have to change and go through and how different of a series they were going to have. Knowing that up front before they even started it, I feel like they would have been better off not running it this year and in 2021 running a full-blown 12-round outdoor series in that, and then that basically taking right off from 2019's outdoor series, right? So you could have said whoever won the 19 outdoor series, the 2021 would have been the next one. You just skipped a year. You just skipped a year right in there. I don't know. Personally, I feel like that would have kept it a little more, kept the integrity to it a little more. You know what I mean? Yeah, it would have sucked not running a series one year. I get it. I understand that side of it too, but I guess my point is I would have rather not even ran it versus having a 9-round series where 2 of the rounds is on one of the easiest amateur tracks out there, right? And then, you know, only running the 9 rounds. Like, I would have rather have just waited and then ran an actual proper outdoor series in 2021. But that's just my own personal opinion. Appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.